housing device was in the exclusive control of the defendant, meaning the nurse or the doctor, and the defendant must have been negligent or it wouldn't have happened, and the plaintiff is innocent. Best example I can give you, sponge count cases in the OR. The sponges are in the exclusive control of the surgical nurse. Sponges do not spontaneously grow in the abdomens of patients. So therefore, the defendant must have been negligent if a sponge or instrument is found inside a patient's body. And the plaintiff is innocent. Usually they're being, they're intubated and somebody's breathing for them. You know, they're out of it. They weren't laying there going, yo, hey, could you tuck a little instrument? I play this later. You know, that isn't what happens. The plaintiff is innocent. The procedural effect of a res ipsa loquitur case, which is a medical negligence case, is it shifts the burden of proof from the plaintiff, who just has to stand up and say, they left a sponge in my belly. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, go sit down. You know, they will know. The ladies and gentlemen of the jury will go, oh. And then it becomes the defense's case to prove that that was the normal thing to do, or it wasn't their sponge, or whatever. However, under res ipsa loquitur cases, I'll show you a cartoon in a minute that tells you what generally happens. But what we're talking about now as far as definitions go are liability. And what is the definition of liability? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Fault. Liability is basically fault. Whose fault is it? And if it is their fault, what did they do? What made them liable or accountable for the wrong that happened? So that liability talks about fault, accountability talks about responsibility. And in nursing, accountability takes two forms. Personal accountability, which is the responsibility for the nurse have to themselves to stay educated on what's happening and to take care of the patients that are entrusted into their care. And then professional accountability. Professional accountability as a nurse takes the two forms of personal and public accountability. So personal accountability is your relationship with your patients, and public accountability is your response to the community as a professional nurse and your response to stay abreast of what's happening in healthcare. Okay, that's all the alternative medicine your HMO will pay for. The alternative medicine is also gives you options of care for your patients. So in the past, we pretty much had a direct shot into caring for a disease process. Now we've shifted the focus to say, let's take a look at what's happening and try to be preventative in the way that we address patient problems. So when you're giving your patients alternatives as an advocate and as part of your professional responsibility and accountability to stay abreast of what's happening, you may want to share then what some of the alternative medicines are. So when you look at liability, you ask, who is responsible? Who is responsible for the harm that happened? You look at your personal as a nurse and public accountability. You look at vicarious liability. That means responsibilities for others who are working under you, under your direction. That may be your PCTs, your sitters, maybe other nurses, maybe LPNs. Vicarious liability says that you are responsible for their actions in their roles as they work underneath you. An example case, there was a young PCT at a nursing home who had a patient whose ring she greatly admired. In fact, she admired it so much, she stole it. And the family came and noticed that the ring was missing. They called the police. The police came and started interviewing people at the nursing home. One of the other PCTs said, I know who took the ring. It's that PCT over there. And they approached the other PCT, who then said, yes, it was me. I'm sorry. I stole it. I hawked it. And I have this much money now as a result. And so the family sued the skilled nursing facility. And as they were preparing to go to court, one of the questions asked was, what is the job description of the PCT? And you looked at the job description, it said activities of daily living, which includes showering, setting up the baths, functions under the direction of an LPN or an RN, da-da-da-da-da. And the judge said, nowhere on here does it say, and if you see a ring that you really like, help yourself. So this person was not functioning under their job description in taking the ring. They may have been working as a PCT. The taking the ring was their own independent action, and therefore the nurse who was supervising at the facility who hired that person was not held accountable for that wrongdoing. Although they tried vicarious liability in that case, it didn't apply. Okay? Corporate accountability. Can a corporate officer, if someday you rise to the ranks of being the director of nursing or the CEO of a hospital, can you be held accountable for what happens within the corporation? Yes, you are. That kind of accountability goes straight up. So, what is your responsibility as a corporate officer to make sure that your staff report to you when there are problems? Let's say you're walking down the hallway as a nurse, and you see a little puddle on the floor. First thing you do is stand over and say, puddle, puddle, because you've learned that you can't leave puddles on the floor, you gotta clean them up. Get somebody to bring you a towel or a wash rag or something, you clean it up, you go on about your business, you come back to the same spot, puddle, oh. Okay, who's got the leaky Foley? You know, you're gonna ask why do you keep getting a puddle in the same place? You stop for a minute and you look up and you see that there's water dripping from the ceiling. Is it your responsibility to get a ladder and climb up and push the pieces away and see if you can find the leak? No. What is your responsibility under those circumstances? Call the appropriate person, facilities or whoever, and let them know that there's a leak here and needs to be repaired. Follow that chain of command for getting that done. Okay, the corporation, if the corporation doesn't provide a facilities person, or if they don't provide the tools to repair that kind of problem, then they are accountable. Otherwise, if they don't have notice that there's a problem, they can't be everywhere at once. So if you see someone who is practicing as a nurse and appears to be intoxicated, under the influence of drugs, under psychiatric strain, you have a duty to report that person to your manager and say, I don't know what's going on, but this person seems to have a problem. And these are the behaviors that I have observed. And then that manager has the duty to follow that up. Okay, so you don't have to call the State Board of Nursing and report them. You just report to the person above you if you're observing that kind of behavior. You may even see doctors who are not acting appropriately. Okay, this is a res ipsa loquitur case. Just look at it for a minute, you'll get it. Most of your res ipsa loquitur cases settle out of court. Why? Because they're so obvious. There was a case in Florida where they cut off the wrong leg. Res ipsa loquitur. You have to explain to a jury, they cut the right leg and it was the left leg that was in trouble. Jury will get that right away. They took the wrong patient off the ventilator, same hospital, about 3 weeks later, and the patient died. Whoops. Took the wrong patient off the ventilator. You have to explain to the jury that was not a good idea? Nope, they get it right away. So most of your res ipsa loquitur cases will settle out of court. They don't want the headlines. Okay, so how do we know what your actions should be? How do we know what the right actions are according to law? We look at the construction of the jury. Are they all nurses? Are they all healthcare providers? Probably not. So we have to explain to them what is the standard of care for a nurse. You always have to, or a doctor, or a psychologist, or whoever. Are we held to a local or a national standard? What do you think?
Sure.
Actually a national standard, because you take an NCLEX exam, you know, you're part of a national educational system. Graduate from a college that is approved nationally, so you're held to a national standard. And they'll bring in an expert witness, another nurse, presumably working in the same area that you are, testifies to what should have happened. There are national organization standards. Let's say you work in orthopedics or pediatrics or the NICU. There are national standards that we brought into court. They'll bring professional journals in with articles about what nurses